It's Friday, it's some time or other, and it's Dragonheart. The takeover finally went through. The typically British delays frustrated our new owners. Wait till they try and catch a train to an away match. We've got some stability in our first team now, and after Tuesday, I don't reckon we'll be Altrincham anytime soon. Thank you very much. Alti did well to adapt to a late change of venue on Tuesday. They had to do live stream on 4G, but it was still better than most streams I've seen this season. I won't say who's the worst. I'll leave it to your imagination. We face Notts County tomorrow, and they come into the game in fine form. They won on Tuesday despite playing most of the game without a goalkeeper. A daring tactic that Jurgen Klopp attempted unsuccessfully last Sunday. We'll be chatting about the two games from last week, the takeover, and of course paying tribute to Dai Davies. So, what are you waiting for? Let's get on with Dragonheart.
I'm Kwame Thomas.
I'm Adi Yusuf here.
I'm Anthony Jeffrey.
And you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
So yeah, welcome to Dragonheart. Look, you can see us in all our glory. You'll have to abandon this when the network goes down, obviously. As you can see, Chay Long is live from the racecourse, standing in front of the Mould Road stand, whereas I am in front of a computer-generated version of a messy bedroom. Oh, so it's not a bedroom. I think oh God, I'm so middle class. I've just realised I think I've got a study. It's a study. Whoa,
that's very middle class.
I know, it's awful, this, isn't it? I've took my elbow patches off my kit before I hit record. How are you doing, Chay? You all right?
Yeah, I'm very good, especially after news and the performance from this early on this week. So yeah. Buzzing. Absolutely.
Well, we'll get on to those two games soon, but we've got to start with the takeover, haven't we? I mean, wow, Tuesday, Super Tuesday. It finally went through. That's a hell of a relief, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's obviously a Tuesday to remember, especially after the performance as well, which I think's been forgotten about. But we'll get on to that later. Yeah, over the moon. We knew it was going to happen sometime soon. You know, it was just the waiting game. And I think the pandemic hasn't helped. You know, there's going to be a lot of officers who've had to work from home who were working on it, and that's obviously delayed things. And they've obviously wanted to make sure everything was kosher. But finally, done. Brilliant timing, especially before the huge game on Saturday.
Just a little sarky comment here. If the FCA were genuinely looking at this from a sort of good governance point of view and being thorough, and that was the hold-up, as well as, like you said, that everything's weird with COVID, you know, and if they were genuinely just making sure that a body whose raison d'etre is to own the club were not being corrupted, if you will, or going against its aims by selling the club, then firstly, can I say, although it's frustrating, that's great. I'm glad they're watching out like that. But where were they when all sorts of dodgy characters with directorship bans were trying to buy our club and every other club? You know, maybe they should be looking a bit more closely at that sort of thing, rather than two people who clearly pass any fit and proper person's test you care to think of, and clearly have got disposable income that they want to put in. I'm glad if they're being that cautious, because they should do. But I don't understand why they can't step in, perhaps when some gun runner tries to buy. Well, I was going to name a club that a gun runner bought then. I bet I hadn't, did I? But,
yeah, you got to be careful of what you say on these podcasts, especially with these owners, that they'll do anything to take someone to court, won't they? But
it's an ex-owner, then, I hasten to add, before any current owners look into it. But
yeah, but I'm honestly so relieved. Great timing, because we just come off a really good game where we won, and it was do you think maybe if we would have lost that game, they wouldn't have announced it that night, or do you think they would have waited a couple of games or days, or?
I think it was going to happen then.
I
think it was going to happen then. I think they're so urgent to get it done that they just wanted to announce. I think they've both become quite impatient. I don't think for a second there was a danger of them pulling out. And when I say it was a relief, it's a relief just to finally have that all sorted. But they were never going to pull out. Like some people were panicking. I can understand why people were panicked, but they're never going to. But I think they were just desperate to announce it whenever they could. And I believe it went through about 11ish. So I think it was pretty much immediately announced the second it went through. And the other thing, of course, I mean, let's be frank, we're quite a leaky football club. Maybe that's a consequence of being a fan-owned football club. There's a lot of fans in a position to know things. Well, that probably will rectify itself now, in all honesty. But bearing that in mind as well, it probably isn't a story to sit on overnight, because there's probably people will be WhatsApping each other and whatever and spreading the news, and it will be no announcement when it's actually put out there.
But it was just a big relief, wasn't it? And it goes way further beyond what's happening at the football ground as well. You know, everyone's talking about it, aren't they? Yeah. Non-football fans, football fans from all around the globe are talking about our little town, and that's, you know, especially when you look at national news and they mention Wrexham, and when Wrexham's trending on Twitter or something, you think, oh, what have we done now, sort of thing, usually, isn't it? But it's now nice for people to see, for two really, really wealthy, well thought of people from another part of the globe to look at our town and see real potential. It's just brilliant, isn't it?
It is. I love the way you put that about looking at our town and seeing the potential as well, because that's clearly what they're about. They're clearly about the community, not just the club. And also, I mean, right, if Ryan Reynolds, say, was just part of a consortium led by other people, and he was just putting a little bit of money in, and those people, without him realizing, didn't have the best intentions, it would still be a huge story, even though, you know, it might not be such a happy story. But the honest truth of the matter is that they have genuinely just thought, oh, we want to have some fun, we want to make something good here, and they've picked us out, looking at the town, like you say, not just the club. And so it's a real sort of fairy tale story in more ways than you'd imagine, because, you know, sometimes wealthy people do put a little bit of cash into an investment in something, but it doesn't tend to be an investment like this, which looks likely to have repercussions in the region and way beyond sport. Although I was delighted as well to see that the first thing they announced after taking over was £50,000 to properly set up the women's team. I see no reason, I've written this in my column in the Leader this week, I see no reason why, because women's football is still building itself up, and I'm not trying to pretend it not existed till lately, but in a commercial sense, this is the beginning of women's football. Well, I think getting in at the sort of the ground floor with a bit of money behind us, you know, that could be a fantastic thing, that we've got the men's team succeeding, we've got the women's team really aiming ambitiously to do things. I mean, this is straight away, that's great. Yeah,
there's a lot. I'm not trying to diminish the women's game. There's a lot less money in the women's game.
Yeah.
So if they invest well in it, you never know, they could end up in the Women's Premier League. Yeah. You know, that's actually that could actually happen.
I'm really curious about that, actually. I need to get Gemma Owen on this show. Gemma, if you're listening, I'm going to be contacting you, because Gemma Brilliance runs the Racecourse Foundation, and, you know, obviously oversees the women's team as well. I mean, we're in the Welsh pyramid for women's football at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see what direction we take, because part of me thinks what you're saying, that, could we really get in, like I said, on the ground floor of something? Or will we be looking to dominate Welsh football and get into Europe consistently? It's a nice problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the women's game to comment, really. So I don't really want to be saying things out of turn to say, oh, maybe we should go down this route or that route, because I don't know the system. It'd be great to hear more about that and what that £50,000 can do for the women's game in Wrexham.
Absolutely. Just to back you up on your point as well about the sort of commercial neglect of the women's game. I don't know if you saw, there was a news story about the Everton women's kit sponsorship, shirt sponsorship lately. And the reason it was a story was because they've got their own sponsorship deal.
Yeah,
Whereas
a lot of women's teams do.
So again,
A lot of women's teams do have different sponsorships.
well, my understanding is that a lot of the women's team will have the same sponsorship as the men's teams.
I've seen a few teams that do have a little bit of a different sponsor or a different
right.
side sponsor.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
I was listening to Kieran Maguire, our guest last week, and he was talking about this on The Price of Football, saying that it's sort of quite unusual for that to happen, because generally Premier League commercial departments are only aiming at the men's team. And even though, you know, a Premier League team's commercial department ought to be massive, it's so aimed at that first team, the men's team, that they tend to just not have the time or resources to properly set up a sponsorship for the women's team, which is why they just lump them in with the men's. And this Everton one seems to be quite groundbreaking in the fact that it's a big deal, which is completely unrelated in any way to the men's team. So that gives you maybe a picture of how there's scope for investment to make a difference. So,
and it's not just the women's team. There's the disability teams they could help. There's the DSA in general, isn't it? That they could help. There's the funding of the COP, which needs to be done, doesn't it, at some point as well. It opens, now with this investment, it opens so many different doors for us as a club. Who knows where we could be in the next few years. But on the flip side, I do want fans to be a little bit patient as well. And, you know, these owners want to do things organically. So if we don't go up this year, we don't go up the next year, don't panic. It's not the end of the world. We will go up at some point. Yeah,
they're in it for the long run. And they don't want to create a boom and bust situation where they throw crazy money at something and then we have immediate accelerated success and then we regress back to where we were or even worse. I mean, I can't help thinking of, I mean, it's probably on a slightly different scale, but Russian and Diamonds, who come up into the Football League in the early 2000s. They then get promoted with us in 2003 up to League One. All on the money of Max Griggs, the man who owned and started Doc Martens. And yeah, I mean, great. If you've ever been there, I mean, they're actually based in a little village called Earthlingborough, which sounds like it's where Martians land. You know, they want to meet the Earthlings. But two tiny little clubs that were merged into it, two tiny little villages, no natural fan base at all. And yeah, they got into League One. They played some lovely football. Their stadium was absolutely gorgeous. And they had wonderful youth facilities next to it. And then he decided to pull out. And now that stadium, well, the last I saw of it, it was a pile of rubble. The club don't exist anymore. You know, so you aim for the stars. If you haven't got a sustainable plan, at the end of the process, you don't exist anymore. We don't want that. We want that organic growth you mentioned, and that's what they're looking at. They're not going to go crazy straight away, but they're just going to give us that boost that helps us to get out. And as Spencer Harris said on Dragonheart a while ago, we are probably set up, once we hit the Football League with that extra funding, to then accelerate in the Football League anyway. Even under the trust, we probably would have expected that. Yeah,
and we're very close. It's just shame in many ways as well. We're very close to go up on a few occasions under the WST. So that's another shout out I'd like to do the WST. Thanks very much for them for steadying the ship and making us such a investable club. You know what I mean? Investable, I don't know if that's a word.
Exactly.
You know, to look at the ground and think, wow, we can do so much here. But the WST's kept us afloat and kept us at a good level, which is brilliant. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy they've taken over. I'm happy it's going through. And it's the first step now to hopefully greatness.
Greatness, I like the sound of that. I just like it being, as they said a while ago, this first step to never playing Chester again. Bless them. Yeah, fair play. It's exciting times. Apparently, Russian Diamonds grounds, Geraint Parry informed me, is a really good place to buy good quality Doc Martens that you don't see elsewhere as well. Just sell them in the club shop. I used to really like going to Russian Diamonds. Lovely little setup, lovely stadium. But
again, talk about a Russian Diamonds thing. Yeovil were in the Championship not so long ago as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's if you don't have a sustainable model, sometimes you can get into the Championship, but it's just staying there or thereabouts, isn't it? That's the hard task.
Absolutely.
So even you know, it's about building a sustainable club where, you know, if we go to League Two, if we just stay there for 5-6 years, it's not the end of the world as long as we're going up and up and up, and we're improving slowly. I'd rather us improve slowly than do what, say, Yeovil did or Fleetwood have done and just gone boom straight up all the way to the top and then crash because the investors don't want to put their money into it anymore.
Exactly, it's a danger, isn't it? I've wondered about Crawley and Forest Green and Fleetwood. To be fair, they seem to be sustaining it fairly well. But I remember Neath had a rich benefactor, and they looked sensational. And I know exactly how well they were funded, because one summer we had Christian O'Leary, old Swansea centre-back, who'd come to us at the end of a season under Dean Saunders and working his connections. And he wasn't fit, but you could see he was better than National League. He was a good, solid defensive player. And so we wanted to keep him, and we couldn't because Neath outbid us. Now, they get crowds of 200, and they outbid us. Now, that tells you how much the wealthy benefactor was. The other indicator that same summer was that Lee Trundle was without a club, and he was training with us, and fans were gossiping, saying, oh, we're going to bring Lee Trundle in. He's training with us. And the club were absolutely unequivocal, saying there is no way on earth Lee Trundle is coming to play for us. He is so far outside our wage budget, it just could not happen. He's just keeping fit.
Yeah.
He signed for Neath. That tells you everything about how much he was piling in. But again, like Rushton and the Diamonds, they had a couple of great years having fun, and now they don't exist because they went flew too close to the sun. So I'm glad that by putting infrastructure and everything in and being realistic, that we're hopefully going to grow organically and not take those risks.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, the improvements to the stadium would be fantastic to get concerts in and international football back at the racecourse, which I think is the number one goal, is to make Wrexham a host for international friendlies or even World Cup and European Championship qualifiers, which would be absolutely massive for the town.
I want to see the stadium developed into a multi-use arena that can host my dream event, which is monster trucks versus Mark Crichton, Darren Kempson and Delia Adebola. It'd be awesome. Stuffed Truckasaurus, that's going to be good.
Yeah, that is the future. We, you know.
Yeah. Can I just say, I've just decided the title of this Dragonheart is Stuffed Truckasaurus.
But there's so much that this club could improve on. The youth setup, which is good already, but being able to keep the best talent at Wrexham is a huge thing. I'd rather that rather than spending loads of money on washed up Scottish Premier League players or Championship players. You know what I mean?
I got someone in mind by that description. Sorry, I'm not going to say anymore.
But it's just great. It's great for the club, but it's also great for town. I've been talking to friends who've been saying, you know what, if it's affordable, I won't take my son to Liverpool once every couple of months. I'll buy him a season ticket with Wrexham.
Yeah, brilliant.
And
brilliant.
It's gaining that. We've got that 5,000 hardcore who would go no matter what. It's gaining that 1,000, 2,000 extra fans who would just go in for a day out.
Exactly.
And if we just make it a fun place to go watch football and the atmosphere good, the attendances will shoot up.
And like you say, we've lost so many good young players from the academy. It'd be great to be able to have that in place and keep them and continue and support the excellent work that Dan Nolan does there, because he's extremely highly thought of. And indeed, to keep hold of him, because we've lost so many good coaches who've then gone on to win the World Cup at youth level, for example. You know, but Cooper, Weaver, all these different people have done so well and have then got moved on to high-profile jobs. Let's hang on to somebody and develop a youth system.
That's the way forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
If we can, you never know what you can get from Wrexham. You know, if we were able to get someone like a Nico Williams, who's from around here, and keep hold of him, yeah, we might not be able to keep hold of him for a few seasons, but we might be able to bring 2 or 3 million in for him.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's more money again, isn't it, for the club and the infrastructure and for the squad. It's the future. It's the future. Having money creates more money in football, doesn't it?
Or even just looking at Davis Keeler Dunn the end of last season, who looked a class act, and we didn't hang on to him, and he's now played more often than not for Oldham. Well, you know, I wonder if he's looking and thinking, oh, if I'd known this was going to happen, I definitely would say, because he was keen to stay, but it was just the financial situation just went on too long. But I don't know. Anyway, let's stop looking at the future, shall we? Stuff the future, stuff Truckasaurus, and let's go on to think about the fuzzy. Although we will have to start off with the Dagenham game, which might just, might bring back some bad memories, I suspect.
I'm Luke Young, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Right, let's stop dreaming and start remembering the nightmare. The nightmare of a 95th minute equaliser, and then the referee blowing for full time when we were in their 6-yard box. Oh, I don't think I was as upset by the Dagenham game as everyone else was. I don't know why, but at the time, but afterwards, it sort of hit me a bit. We just should have won that game.
I was upset. I thought we looked the better side for most of the game, especially second half. We took control, but sometimes in football, it literally takes 2 chances and it's 2 goals, isn't it? Yeah. But I credit to Dagenham. It was a good game, wasn't it? It was very back and forth. Yeah. There could have been a lot more goals than there actually was.
It was a fabulous game to watch. I mean, if you didn't have a horse in the race, you'd love watching that. It was terrific, and I must say as well, looking at the Altrincham game as well, as bringing in Dior Angus changed something a little bit in that respect. We suddenly seem to be playing much more open football. But yeah, I mean, it could easily have been 6-6.
Yeah, we
could easily have won it 6-2, or they could have nicked it. But there were lots of chances at either end. But we seem to have held out. That's the frustrating part, isn't it? We started really well. The first 10 minutes, we should have scored, and that was really as bad for us as letting in that late goal. We should have. First 10 minutes, they couldn't get out of their box, and we should have punished them. That was much too easy to get into their penalty area. They were there for the taking. They were good on the break, but they were there for the taking, and we could have killed that game off in the first half hour. And I look back at that period and think I'm really happy about it, but I also feel very frustrated by it because we didn't have anything to show for it.
You would have been happy if we would have won 2-1. You would have been happy with that opening, It was a frustrating end to the game, but it's one of them. That's why we love football. Sometimes this happens to us. We were 2-0 down against Weymouth and we ended up winning 3-2.
Yeah.
These things happen in the season, but we were out without 2 centre-backs as well, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah.
So, looking at their goals, I think if we would have had Tyler French or Vassell playing, some of those aerial threats, especially the second goal, may not have happened for them because Davis is quite a small. He was marking one of the strikers, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The second goal.
I think it's important to remember that. When we're currently equaled our best unbeaten run of the season, and we're also equal of Eastleigh on the longest unbeaten run at the moment in the National League. And frankly, we should have beaten Eastleigh if it wasn't for the referee. So we should be outright the best unbeaten run in the National League. And we're doing that with with one fit centre-back, with no goalkeeper. Well, I'll say that, with no first-choice goalkeeper, and he is one of our outstanding players.
Yeah.
And having lost a striker, which means we are a striker down in our squad. That is good. I mean, it is encouraging to see us coping with all that adversity. And maybe there was a bit of a change too far. I felt sorry for Jordan Davis. I thought he did some good things, and he's definitely not a centre-back. And I certainly wouldn't want to hang him out to dry. He's a cracking player. And I thought he won a lot of good headers, actually. I thought, funnily enough, in the first half, when we were pushing up more, and you would think that might be what suits him better, that was when he made a couple of mistakes. But when we were sitting deep and defending the boundary area, I thought he won a few good headers, actually. He did pretty well with that.
Yeah. I'm definitely. By the way, I'm not hanging Davis out to dry. I think he's been brilliant, but it's not his position, is it? He's not physical enough for that position. Quite clearly, I think Tyler French was doing a better job at the second goal, but that is what it is. We had 2 makeshift centre backs for that game. It's not the end of the world, but shall we bring it back to the first goal? I thought Jamie Records' goal was fantastic. It was he controlled it dodgy, but it was a really great shot on the half volley, wasn't it?
He's flying, isn't he? Ever since they dropped him, he's come back in, and he's just sensational. When Keats brought him back in at left wing back ahead of Jordan Davis, I thought, oh really? Davis is doing really well in that position. Now I think, stroke of genius, because Records flying. As we've said before, the wing-back system, that one of the main benefits of it is you can get both wing-backs forwards at the same time, whereas play 4 at the back, you can't send both full-backs up. And, well, I mean, Hall Johnson hitting the goal line and sticking a 6-yard box cross in for the other wing-back to score. Brilliant. As John Davies, one of our regular Ask Wrexham correspondents, asked when's the last time both full-backs or wing-backs have scored in a game for Wrexham. And I decided to have a look back, and it's 2004. Paul Edwards and Carlos Edwards both scored against Southend. That's how rare that is. But they both look dangerous. They're both getting goals and assists this season, aren't they? So that's a real benefit for us.
I've been singing Records' praises since I first seen him play for us. He's probably one of my favourite players. And recently, he's just been absolutely outstanding, isn't he? Oh, yeah. Defensively, going forward. He's physical as well. So it shocked me that they played Jordan Davis as centre-back and not Record.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I would have thought.
But maybe he's just not good in that position at all. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. But I've been but saying that, on the flip side, he's been scoring goals recently as well. So he's been playing really well. Yeah. So it's one of them. And Reece Johnson the second, as you said, 2 wing backs for 2 goals. It's crazy that our main goal threats at times are from the wing backs, isn't it? Yeah,
well, it's just great, isn't it? It is reminiscent in some ways of that Paul Edwards, Carlos Edwards promotion team, isn't it? Although they're different types of players, but yeah, it's exciting to watch. It's nice to be looking at a team that everyone said was negative and thinking about how we're actually throwing players forwards in unexpected positions and getting returns for it. And to be fair, they are actually scoring. Hall Johnson's got, what is it, 4 now? 4, isn't it? I think. Yeah. Fair play to him. 2 with his left foot as well. Yeah. And Records got 3 in 4 games. That's, any player is going to be happy with that, no matter what position. It's good to see. Jay Harris, I think, has been in very good form lately as well, hasn't he? He's really started to get.
He's lucky to be on the pitch though, as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I thought he can be quite rash, can he, at times? And I think it's depending. Depending on the referee, he could have got sent off against Dagenham, in my opinion.
Well, I was commentating because you were unwell on Saturday, and couldn't come to the game, and I was commentating with Neil Williams, and he very kindly complimented me on how I described that second yellow tackle by Harris, which was he's not sent him off. He's come to the right decision by absolutely the wrong route, because I thought the first yellow card he got was a good tackle. I didn't think it was even a foul, never mind a yellow card. So he gets a yellow card for nothing, and then that second one is yellow card. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. I mean, if I was a Dagenham fan, I'd be livid that a player on a yellow card wasn't sent off at that. I mean, it was late. It was in a dangerous part of the pitch. What more do you want? And clearly the referee just thought, well, I shouldn't have booked him in the first place. Oh, I'll just let it go. And he deserves to be on a booking now, so I'll leave it. But it's poor refereeing.
That's the problem with officiating in the National League. It's so inconsistent, isn't it? Yeah, sometimes they give a yellow card for something that you think, what? And then other times you think, that should have been a red card, or that should have been a yellow card. Shall we talk about Dior Angus for a little bit?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about him?
I don't think he's quite up to his full speed yet, but I think he's making a difference. It's quick. He forces defenders to defend a bit deeper. He's not scared to run at them. He's not scared to have a shot. And I think Thomas is enjoying playing with him and enjoying the fact that Angus, as a threat, creates a bit of space for Thomas as well.
That's why Thomas has had a few goals recently as well, I think. And he's big and physical himself, isn't he? So he can sort of play that target man role as well as what he's doing. That's why I think sometimes it's a shame that Yusuf left us, because I think them two might have linked up quite well together as well.
Well, Ponticelli, of course, is the one who's missed out and was injured anyway on Tuesday. But I mean, I know I've been saying this all the time. This season, he's looked a better all-round player, but it's because I don't know if you saw a cat just jump onto my table. She might make an appearance if you're watching the video. Ponticelli's looked a better all-round player because he's been dropping off deep. Angus isn't so much. They do seem to be. I'm not naive. He'd never have like two full-on strikers as such, but Angus is also looking to get into those attacking positions. And I think it is occupying defenders more, and it's helping Thomas, who, as it turns out, is a 6-yard box striker. he's the net best one we've had since Ugarte, isn't he? Attacks the goal mouth, gets tap-ins. Great. That's what we want.
It is great. And now I want to talk about maybe some negatives. What do you think of the substitutions?
I can't remember him. Hang on.
It was.
Oh, I remember. He brought Ponticelli on for Jarvis, and then Rutherford came on for Angus.
Yeah.
I think I can see what the idea was, and I think I applaud it, but I would have made those changes in the reverse order and ended up with what we eventually had earlier. I mean, Jarvis was playing sort of attacking midfield, wasn't he, supporting the strikers? To bring Ponticelli on, partly was, I think, an acknowledgement that his all-round game is better than it was, and maybe he can play in that advanced role. But their first goal, I would argue, if you look back on it, really was Ponticelli's man who scored. Although we were putting, and a lot of people are saying we defended too deep in the last 15 minutes. I'm not totally sure about that, because we've done this in other matches that we've won late on when we put under pressure, and we've been okay. And they weren't actually making chances. I thought we were defending the penalty area well, especially handling McCallum, who's famously a great target man, and Kelleher had a beating of him in the box.
Yeah.
But, when Weston manages to flick a brilliant skill to flick it over Harris and run onto the other side of it and just about keep it in, it's great play. But I still felt we looked to have things covered in the box. He didn't have many options. And then all of a sudden, Robinson's just standing there on mark 15 yards out at all the time in the world. And when you look back, he was Ponticelli's man, because he's not a player maybe who's used to doing that sort of get back in your own penalty area and mark up job. And he was ball watching a bit.
Do you think Durrell would have been a better substitution than Ponticelli for that role?
I think Rutherford.
Yeah.
Rutherford is... a player who's used to playing deeper, who's very hard-working. I'm not saying Ponticelli isn't, by the way. He was back there. He just got distracted. But, he's very experienced. Rutherford, he's less likely, I think, to let somebody run off on his blind side and not be aware of it. But like I said, I can see the positive reason why. I think Keats, to be fair, and I'm outspoken on this, perhaps. I don't think it's fair the way people just have this cliched Keats ball defensive thing. I think that's... You're not really looking properly at what's happening in details in the game, if you say that. I'm not saying he's, Bielsa, but I think he's brought Ponticelli on partly because he feels that Dagenham look vulnerable on the break, and that maybe a good way to defend the lead will be to get another goal. And we did look to have more goals in us. So,
do you think he was thinking, I think maybe Ponticelli's low on confidence, let's get a goal here, finish the game off? Which he could have done. Yeah. I think with that ball, when he come in, he tried to do like a fancy flick, didn't he? Yeah. Instead of touch and have a big shot. And I think that screams a player who's low on confidence at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. It didn't quite come where he expected. And he just did something quick and instinctive, and just didn't come off. But I think I can see the logic of doing it. But, with the benefit of hindsight, which if you don't have when you make a substitution, it was too bold. And I think putting Rutherford on first, I mentioned this in the podcast afterwards, when Keats first came in, he inherited a terrible squad then, worse than the squad he inherited last season. That's saying something. It was farcical squad. And he managed to get a bit of a tune out of them until the transfer window, when he flushed a lot of players out and got a lot of players in. And one of the things he did, which worked very well, was play a diamond in midfield with Rutherford as the attacking point, which is similar, isn't it, to what the job Jarvis was doing, playing behind two strikers. And it was stroke of genius, not necessarily because he's not number 10. He's not going to be putting his foot on the ball and moving it around. But what he is a terrifically hard worker who can understand his role and carry it out. And what we basically did, and it worked most wonderfully against Forest Green Rovers at the time of running away with the league. They're a real short passing team, always wanted to pass out from the back. So the two strikers and Rutherford stopped them passing out from the back. So it was just a super high press in their half. Rutherford was wonderful in that role. As you can imagine, he just runs all day, doesn't he? And the other two would hold people, and he'd be running around, and they'd press and press and press. Forest Green couldn't get their rhythm going, and we won 3-1, and we were absolutely fantastic. That was maybe the same sort of situation, because Dagenham were making mistakes when they were put under pressure at the back. And if you're going to take a bit of a gamble, Rutherford could have done that. But then, I'm saying that with the benefit of hindsight, aren't I? If Ponticelli had come on and he got a goal, or we got another goal, it would look like utter genius. And I think it was reasonable to think we might do that. And I think it's a bit ironic. People are criticising Keats for letting the team defend too deep and also making an attacking substitution. Well, make your mind up there.
Yeah, they'd be criticising again if they put on a defensive player and then they scored the 2 goals anyway. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I can understand. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from there. Definitely. So
the second goal doesn't come from any of the substitutions.
No,
the second goal is not relevant. Those changes aren't relevant to that.
Yeah.
I would have had Rutherford on ahead of Ponticelli to do that 20-minute stint personally, but again, like I said, benefit of hindsight. Easy for me to say that, isn't it?
Yeah. They almost scored twice, didn't they? Towards the latter end of the game. And it was that ball in, wasn't it? And I don't know who Dagenham's striker was heading it. And the second goal for me, I thought was quite a good goal, well-worked goal by them as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's a holding midfielder getting in there late. It was a good. The other issue, the big issue we had, was they brought on Miles Weston. I was surprised by the look of their team. It felt like a manager not sure how to get that's not fair. He's a good manager, I think, McMahon. Not sure where the next result's coming from because they haven't been playing well, and just having a big shake-up. Now, to be fair, there could be COVID issues that we're not aware of or match fitness issues, but he dropped 5 players, and essentially he dropped all the experienced players. So McCallum and Weston coming off the bench were players I'd have thought would be key to them, and Weston was key. I think and it was, credit to Record, because Weston comes on a right wing, runs at Record all the time, doesn't get anywhere. So he switched him to the left wing, and he was consistently getting past Hall Johnson and getting his crosses in. And Hall Johnson did really well going forwards. To be fair to him, he's not as good a defender as Record. That's not a criticism, that's just a statement of fact. And he was being left isolated. And that was the little area where I thought, okay, should we make an alteration here? Harris was trying to get across to help him, and did sometimes. But too often they were able to switch play and isolate Hall Johnson against Weston. And Weston stuck the crossing for the goal, and he just had the beating of him. And I think that was the area where, if he needs to make a little tweak to our shape, maybe we ought to have done, just to give Hall Johnson a more natural support.
Yeah, and I think as well, the key factor to this game is that we didn't have 3 natural centre-backs.
Yeah.
I think if we had 3 natural centre-backs, we'll get on to the Altrincham game next. For me, I think the game would have been 2-1. It would, but again, hindsight's an amazing thing, isn't it? And yeah, it's one of them. These sort of results happen to every team, don't they? Yeah. These last snatch. Yeah. It sort of felt like a loss, but it was a draw, so it wasn't a loss. And we've gone 5 games unbeaten now, which is brilliant in my opinion. And hopefully we can carry it on.
Yeah, you're saying about lack of those centre-backs. I mean, French and Horsfield are both suspended. Well, there's 2 players who would be ideal in that area of the pitch, playing the right-sided centre-back. Carrington had been playing left-sided centre-back. He had to come across to the other side. If you wanted to tighten up that tweak I'm talking about, well, Horsfield could come on as a right-sided centre-back or as a right wing-back, and just try to take control. But we couldn't do that because they were suspended. So, yeah. It was disappointing, But I was pleased that I'd rather be disappointed because I think we're better than the other side and don't quite finish the job than disappointed because Dagenham are better than us.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I think they were up for it as well, and they are looking like a side that's in and around the relegation spots, aren't they? Or looking like they could be danger of going down. For me, it's one of them. Just forget about it and move on to the next game.
And that's what they did. Yeah, that's what the team did. And that's what we should need to do now, I reckon. So let's go on to the Alti game next, eh?
I'm Elliot Durrell, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Altrincham. Now that was a good one. I was delighted of that. You were saying before the break, Chay, that we needed to put that game behind us. The team definitely did. I thought it was a superb win, that.
Yeah, one of the best wins of the season, I think, away from home against a really good side. They're in the position of the table where they are for a reason.
Yeah.
And it was a good game as well. And what I was worried about was were our heads going to be down after the disappointing draw on Saturday, but they weren't. They looked brilliant, in my opinion.
Keats has always talked about unbeaten runs, and I dare say he was keen to emphasise to the team 4 games unbeaten. When you start getting an unbeaten run going, that's when you start building the basis for pushing on at the top end of the table. And I'm sure he emphasised that to them. We had to sustain pressure in the first 20 minutes, no question. But, again, I didn't feel overly concerned by it because all the shots were coming from outside the box. I mean, I would say, I don't know if this is something they work on or what, Altrincham seems to have a lot more long-range shots than you normally see in the game and a lot more good long-range shots. And Dibble made some smashing saves. But, let's not forget the first principles of organising a team defensively. If your back four is stopping the other side from shooting inside the box, then you should be relying on your keeper to save any shots from outside the box. So as far as I'm concerned, apart from that time they opened us up when Harrison was one-on-one with Dibble, and Dibble did really well, I thought we were okay defensively, frankly, and held them at arm's length to a great extent.
It was a bit wild, wasn't it? The way Altrincham was setting up, they would just seem to be shooting from everywhere.
Yeah.
And I didn't really quite understand why, because I think if they looked into it, Dibble's best attribute for me is shot stopping, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's a great shot stopper. But what I think he lacks in is when balls are coming in, from crosses. So I thought Altrincham passed the ball well. They were quite clearly a good side. I was very happy with the way we set up, but they were relentless at the first 10 minutes, weren't they, Altrincham, to be fair to them.
I think, like you say, they're a good team, and I can see how their movement could cause real problems for sides. They're two wide players, want to come inside. They'll switch positions quite freely. I know it sounds a bit stupid in a way to say this, but in a way, the 3 players behind the striker almost have free roles in some senses. And you can imagine them really pulling a team out of shape. But I think Keats, when Keats restructured his team in his first spell and added a second season with us, there's a game that sticks in my head that I think was a big experience for him. We went away to Aldershot. Now, Aldershot were a similar sort of team, brilliant movement, lots of really good attacking players. And we were rock solid. We weren't letting any goals in. We had quite a long unbeaten run going into that game at Aldershot. They destroyed us. It was a shock to see our brilliant defence looking awful. They beat us 2-0. How it was only 2-0, I don't know. And Keats afterwards was fuming, saying, if they're all moving around like that, you just got to let them do it in front of you. Keep your shape. Don't go chasing people because they're making unexpected runs. Keep your shape. Let them run into a brick wall. And that is what we did, I thought, to an extent against Altrincham. And so whether that's why they were shooting us outside the box, but they were doing it quite swiftly. I think they fancied themselves. I agree with you about Dibble. I mean, I did cross my mind, have they scouted Dibble and feel that he's poor with long-range shots? If they have, I'm not quite sure what they've seen, because like you say, I think he's good with long-range shots, and the only bad long-range shot that's come into mind is Oh, that nightmare! The game that Brian Hughes' last game in charge last season, that filed where we're winning 2-0 quite comfortably, and then poor Dibble had a genuine nightmare and let in 2 horrible goals. But the second of which was the winner, was a shot from outside the box that he just let straight through him. It was really odd. He just sort of went for it with his foot, but it was like straight at him, and it was a horrible mistake. And it was a sign he'd lost his confidence in the previous games, to be honest, and he needed a break. But that's the only goal I can think of where, apart from actually, funnily enough, Altringham's goal on Tuesday, where he has been sort of, I could fault him from long-range shots. I don't know whether it was as we were defending well, they couldn't get in our box, and they were just backing themselves to hits from distance. Oh, Costello's got a good long-range shot, and Coldclough, maybe they're just
maybe themselves. The conditions as well. Maybe the ball was really slippy. Yeah. Maybe the pitch was slippy, so they thought, if we have a good shot on sight on target, and maybe it might slip out of Dibble's hands and go in, which it did. For their goal. So it did work in some respects, but it was all a bit strange. So, but should we just lead on to Wrexham's first goal then? What's your thoughts on that?
I just go back slightly leading into that goal.
Yeah,
I thought that we, in other away games where we've lost and we've come under pressure early on, we look like we're sort of waiting for it to happen. We've not got much of an outball, and we've often then conceded and then tried to fight back into the game in the second half. In this game, I always thought we had a threat on the break. I didn't think we were hemmed in. Maybe it's because Angus is there, but I always felt that we had scope to hit them on the break and hurt them. And that's what we did, isn't it? Really great thinking with the quick free kick by Harris.
I love a quick free kick. I thought it was brilliant. It really caught them off surprise, and it was a lovely ball in. Nice tap in by Kwame Thomas. Yeah. Happy days. We go into the second half 1-0 up. You can't really ask more of that away from home against a good side.
Well, it could have been 2. Couldn't he? Young hit the post, didn't he, as well? Just exactly. That would be nice.
Yeah. I forgot that was a bit strange, wasn't it? That shot when it hit the post, because the goalkeeper just didn't seem to react to it, did he?
I don't think he saw it coming, did he? It wasn't. No. I mean, was it a shooting position? I don't think you expect someone to hit it from there, but we know Young can't he? He's got a hell of a right foot on him.
Yeah, he has. He's a really important part of our team in the centre midfield there as well. One person I think I'd like to talk about a bit is Tyler French. I think he's brilliant, and I think the way he plays is very mature for his age as well. I know he got sent off for the first game, but that was a bit one of those heated situations where the referee may have sent him off. Some referees may not have sent him off. But for me, I think his maturity and the way he passes the ball and how calm he is on the ball for centre half is brilliant. And I think he could be a really good signing for the future.
You've seen exactly the same as I saw in him on Tuesday. I felt that when you looked at how our wing backs were set up, Record tends to attack from a bit deeper, and Hall Johnson tends to go earlier and have a higher starting position. And because of that, sometimes French is left a little bit more exposed on that side of the pitch. That sort of comes back in a way to what I was talking about with the Dagenham game, doesn't it? The danger down that side. And he was beaten the first time Coldclough went at him, but that was the only time he was beaten. But then, like you said, on the ball, his calmness, he also lacks a decent outball to his right. So his passing options are restricted. On the left-hand side, Carrington can pass it inside, can pass it square to his right, and he'll have Record close enough to feed. Whereas Hall Johnson, generally, when French has got the ball, has gone. And if French is put under pressure, he lacks, an outlet to his right. But he copes with it. He just stays calm, keeps control of the ball, waits until the gap opens up, and then plays the pass. And I think he's good on the ball. Also, he'll do that, but he also is quite keen on the sort of direct pass, the sort of ball straight down the line, second hole. And if you've got the right players to chase that sort of thing, either a wing back like Hall Johnson, or, I think to be fair, both strikers are willing to make those sorts of runs, then that can open a team up and quickly transition us going forwards. And, people talk about lack of creativity. And I'd like to see some brilliant Darren Ferguson-style player playing for us, please. Don't get me wrong. I'll have him. Yeah. But there's lots of different ways to create. And one of them is just playing those accurate early balls a bit sooner and opening up teams before they got their shape. And if we've got strikers willing to make those runs, we've got a wing back making those runs, and a player like French who's good at pumping those balls down the line accurately, we will look more creative because we brought in a centre back.
Yeah, and he's a ball playing centre back. He's not like, for the greatest respects, it's not a knock, but on like Kelleher, who's a big, strong, bit of a lump in the middle, isn't he?
Yeah.
But I'm not saying he's bad on the ball. He's quite good. He's good with long balls.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's obviously not a technical at dribbling, is he? And doing the fancy passes and things like that. He looks like a really good. He looks like a really good signing so far. And I think once is Vassell injured at the moment?
Yeah.
Once he's back, I think our back three would look really, really good.
Well, I've been thinking the same thing. I love Carrington, and I think he's done very well actually, and he can do that job. But you just think, well, the way Vassell was playing before he got injured, remember how fabulous he was in the Halifax game?
Yeah,
if he comes back playing like that in that back three, which is really settled. And Pearson, of course, don't forget, we've got good defensive options that we can't use at the moment. Well, it's a nice problem to have, which sort of leads me on to the fact that, I've heard people saying we should give up on this season, write it off, because next season we can reorganise. Why? We're in a playoff place now. We're 4 points off second place. The top team are falling to pieces. I hate to say I told you so. I always had a funny feeling Torquay wouldn't just run away with the league. When there was 6 points out of the last 6 games, the only win they've had in the last 6 games was against Barnet, who are bottom. Torquay is struggling. They might turn it around. But, I don't know if you saw in midweek, Notts County's manager was asked, have you given up on the title now? A weird thing to ask him when Notts County just lost at home, or drawn at home to Wealdstone, and Notts County had a brilliant win. And then to ask him, have you given up on the title now? And he said, absolutely not. And he's right. They're 11 points behind with 4 games in hand. Why the heck should Notts County give up on the title? But why should we? It's a bit of a long shot. But if Torquay come back down, it's anyone's league.
I don't understand some people saying, well, we'll write off this year. We may not go up this year. The plan, I think, from what the owners are saying, the plan isn't to go up this year. Yeah. But if we can go up, if we can go up, then the plan is to stay in League Two, isn't it? Which is brilliant. We're in a playoff. We're in a playoff position at the moment, and I don't think this side's fully clicked yet.
No,
I don't think we've really reached our full potential, which actually could be a good sign going into the later end of the season. The teams that pick up form usually before the playoffs are the ones that usually go up. So I'm really not giving up on this season just yet, honestly.
I mean, when I agree wholeheartedly, we haven't quite clicked yet. We're managing to gel increasingly while having a lot of key players out injured, which really... I mean, I said at the start of the season, I thought we'd recruited well and in depth, and that rather suggests I was right. I think really we're coping with these injuries. We're getting results despite having an unbelievable crisis at the back. And I remember saying to you when we started playing the more comfortable players on the ball either side of Kelleher, you could just see it just starting to just shape up a bit better. Just looked a bit more convincing. That's why I enjoyed the Halifax game. Although you did as well, but we were in a minority too, I think, weren't we? But
I think
I enjoyed it because I could see us doing that sort of thing against a good side. Using Jordan Davis as a wing back, and suddenly you've got 2 wing backs really looking threatening. And then we bring Record in, and he looks even more threatening. And Davis is now playing well in midfield. And you think, oh, it's all starting to just click a little bit more. What do you think of Davis? I thought he was excellent on Tuesday. I was surprised the commentator said, "Oh, we didn't notice him for the first hour." I thought that was when he did his best work. He was very tidy, I thought.
Brilliant. There was not one player on that pitch that I could really criticise. We beat Altrincham, for me, who are a really good side, and they're if we get into the playoffs, they're the type of side we'll be playing. And for me, the way we set up, I wouldn't want to play Wrexham in a playoff. Defensive team. You don't want to be playing these defensive teams who can grind out wins, especially now with Reesol Johnson and Record playing on the wings and getting goals.
Well, yeah, are we a defensive team? I mean, we're starting to score goals now. That our last 2 games have been real sort of end-to-end affairs.
Yeah.
We do seem to be opening things up a bit, and I still think they're a work in development. And I don't want to get too carried away and start claiming, "Oh yeah, this is the beginning of something amazing." But like you said, you're talking about the plan. Wouldn't that be fantastic? That the plan has been set back by how long it's taken to get the takeover done, so they couldn't plough in resources in the transfer window properly to let Keats really get going. Wouldn't it be brilliantly ironic if then, without being able to do much in the transfer window, we actually managed to jump ahead of plan and get up this season anyway? I don't understand why people dismiss it, whether it's a sort of anti-Keats bias and they're saying what they sort of want, that, oh, Keats is no good, he can never do this squad is rubbish. But, I mean, look at the table. The table says
the table never lies. Yeah, and I know there's teams around us that have played less games, but sometimes playing less games isn't always a good thing. Yeah, because you have to cram these games in somewhere, don't you? And you have to win those games to go up the table. If Wrexham keep on winning, especially with the likes, for me, Saturday is a huge game, isn't it? For Wrexham. Yeah. It's massive. But let's go back to the Altrincham game. What did you think of Wrexham's second goal?
Weird, in a way. Yeah. Well, firstly, I think maybe most importantly, our set pieces were really good, I thought, on Tuesday. We put so many good balls in that caused problems. And we've got a lot of players who can do it as well, which is pleasing. Young and Record and Davis can all deliver well. I'm sure I've missed people out. But Rutherford has shown in the past that he can. Durrell is a specialist on set pieces. We've got a lot of players who fancy a good set piece. And then it was sort of weird the way it went in, wasn't it? We, I don't know if you heard the commentator said he thought he'd missed it. Well, I certainly did.
So did I.
Again?
So did I. I thought I went, I stood up, went, and my brother went, it's gone in.
I didn't see it go in because I was going to write the match report, and obviously you want to get that out for the website. You want to get those out as quickly as possible after the final whistle. So when I saw it make contact with it and it go upwards, I actually looked away and started making a note about, good-headed chance. And then I heard a cheer and looked up, and the players were running towards the corner flag. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll take that. But yeah, it was a good ball in, and it was whether it was a slight misheader or not, or a very well judged header. I don't give a damn. It was the winning goal, and Thomas deserves it. He's been playing tremendously the last few games.
Well, yeah, he's looked like a different player since Angus has come in.
Yeah,
I think Angus does a lot of the dirty work. He does a lot of the running, and he's physical as well. Yeah, that's a real striking partnership that could be really good in the future. Absolutely. It's just a shame that we don't have that. We have Ponticelli. Yeah. I think at some point he will kick in and he will start chipping in with goals. It's a shame we don't have that fourth striker, isn't it, who could offer something different too.
Could we have let Bickerstaff go out on loan?
Yeah. Hindsight though, I don't think he obviously knew that Adi Youssef was going to go though, did he? That's at the time? Yeah, I think it's a bit unfair to say, we shouldn't have got rid of Bickerstaff if we didn't know Adi Youssef was going. So, can we recall him or
no?
Well, yeah.
Like you say, it's a hindsight thing, isn't it? Youssef was saying he was going to be fifth choice striker. So yeah, give him some experience at a decent level was the right decision to make in those circumstances, I think. I tell you what, when I interviewed before the Chesterfield game, I interviewed Chesterfield CEO John Cruz. Lovely, lovely man. Really, really like him. But I also bring him on again to ask him, how does your club furlough people and then bring in Adi Youssef? How did that work exactly?
And the vaccinations, that's a bit sceptical as well, isn't it? But
I don't know. We won. That's what's important, isn't it?
And I think us winning that night, it was a special result, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With the takeover being announced right after it. It completely overshadowed the performance, which for me was one of the better performances we've had this season.
Yeah.
But for me, fantastic result. and a monumental night for Wrexham.
Absolutely brilliant, wasn't it? Really fantastic. Can I just point something out, actually? I just had a quick look on my massive spreadsheet to have a look at the time we were gelling. And I'm sort of thinking that the time we were gelling was Dover. Well, no. Sorry. The time when we started playing the two wide centre-backs who could pass was the Dover game.
Yeah.
And since then, our record, 1 lost Chesterfield, a game we shouldn't have lost.
Yeah.
Drawn to Halifax, 1, drawn, 1. So the results are decent. Goals scored, just thinking about us, maybe being a bit more creative. 3-1 0, 2-1 2-2. So, we're starting to score more than 1 goal in a game, which is pleasing, especially, I haven't looked at this properly, so am I going to be wrong? But the games beforehand, how many did we score? None, 3, to be fair, against Weymouth. 1, none, 1. We were scoring in binary apart from Weymouth before that. It does feel like it's just settling in a little bit. Hope so.
It's starting to gel, isn't it? And looking on to this Saturday's game, this is a real test. Isn't
Absolutely. It? Yeah, so after the week, we'll have a chat about Notts County and what should be a heck of a game.
The other side, you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
All right, so Notts County await us on Saturday. Chay, I know you were saying straight away after the game on Tuesday, you're really excited about this match, aren't you?
It's big, isn't it? I think because you could argue these two sides are the two biggest sides in the league, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Two massive stadiums, two massive fan bases, two good teams on form at the moment as well.
No question. I mean, Notts County unbeaten in 4, and their win on Tuesday, I mean, hell, that was sensational, really, wasn't it?
Incredible. 3 really good goals as well. This team look like the real deal, so I think it's going to be a real test for Wrexham. I'd like to quickly, I had a quick chat with 2 Nottingham County fans on Twitter, and they give me some thoughts on how they feel about this season. They, like us, they seem to have a really slow start, and their manager was getting criticised, like us, for being too defensive. But they have some really good players from the sounds of things. I've had a look into them. Ruben Rodriguez, they're all talking about him, and he looks really good.
So, a great goal against Dagenham on Tuesday.
Phenomenal goal. So I'd like to say thanks to Dan and Stephen, who said they will be tuning in to listen to this as well.
Yay.
So their fans seem really happy to be where they are, and I think equally they're thinking the same thing. This is a really big game and a big occasion, especially with being on BT Sport as well.
I mean, I really like Enzo Bodavine, the right-sided striker. I think when we played them at Meadow Lane earlier last season, he just looks like a nice technical player. He's skillful, he's intelligent, and he's also quick. And I just, watching him, I was scared of him. We drew 1-1, but Notts County should have scored more than 1 goal. And then Devontae Redmond scored a fabulous equaliser. But no, we were winning, bizarrely. We were outplayed, and he scored a great goal out of the blue. And then Christian Tibble made a mistake. The first mistake he'd made that season, dropped across. But County should have scored more than 1 goal in that game. Boudewijn looked constantly threatening. And then Wootton, the target man, is in double figures for the season as well. He scored a screamer on Boxing Day, I seem to remember, against Stockport. I think they're decent. They got players in midfield, it looks to me, who are able to make decent forward runs, and O'Brien in particular seems to get into some nice sort of threatening penalty area positions. I'm very respectful of them, and it must be remembered that win on Tuesday against Dagenham, a team who, as we know, have got an attacking threat. I mean, County had their goalkeeper sent off after 20 minutes and had no goalkeeper on the bench, so put an outfield player in goal for 70 minutes and still battered Dagenham 3-1.
Yeah.
I mean, that does feel a little bit scary. That you got to be confident going into your next game, haven't you?
That's worrying. That says a lot about their defence, doesn't it? Really.
Or their ability to stay on the other side's half.
Exactly, and they were calling their outfield player Schmeichel, weren't they? Their fan. So yeah, it's a huge game, and they've had some really good results recently. You know, the 3-0 they were absolutely brilliant the other day, and I've watched their highlights. And I'm thinking Wrexham really do need to be at their best to get a result on Saturday, don't they?
I think so. I don't know what their backup keeper's like. Let's hope he's rubbish.
Yeah,
he'll have to play on Saturday once he was Slocum suspended.
Yeah, so hopefully he's terrible and he lets in a few awful shots, but I don't know. I'm not 100% confident, but we're 5 games unbeaten as well. So it's two sides who are in good form, up in the playoff positions. It's a fantastic opportunity for Wrexham to get that first win with the new owners as well, isn't it? It's going to be a really big occasion. What a shame the fans aren't there, because the county would have brought some fans.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fans, and I think with the takeover, it would have been a packed out race course, and it would have been a great atmosphere, wouldn't it?
Well, if you imagine the circumstances without COVID, the owners would have been there probably.
Yeah.
And we'd have sold it out, and like I said, county would have certainly brought their fair share as well. The county are one of the few teams in non-league that we could reopen the stand behind the goal for. So yeah, it's a real shame, but it is what it is. My gut feeling, I hope I'm right, is the county are 5th and we're 7th. I just have my gut feeling is that both sides will finish higher than their current positions. I think both sides are getting some momentum going.
Let's hope so.
Could go somewhere. And before I try and get too cocky, saying, "Oh, let's see what county's backup keeper's like." Well, we've had our backup keeper in for the last 4 matches, haven't we? He's done pretty well, I would argue. So yeah, I think I'm clutching at straws, hoping that their backup goalie throws a few in the net. I don't know. But
it's a fantastic opportunity for Wrexham. We're only a point behind Notts County. Yeah. A win can really set us up for the rest of the season. A win, say Hartlepool don't win or Sutton don't win, we're only a point behind second then.
Yeah.
It's, as we said previously in the podcast, don't write us off just yet, honestly.
We can go Sutton and Hartlepool anyway, you know, and during our bad start apparently, but you know.
It's a great opportunity. It's also going to bring a lot of pressure on the players because it's the new ownership thing. But for me, what a perfect team to be playing in our first game with the new owners. Notts County, huge club, very happy with that. And hopefully, we get a good win.
And like you say, it puts pressure on the players, but that's what they should welcome. That you're a professional sportsman, you want to perform on a big occasion and earn more big occasions. So yeah, want them to turn up and show what they've got. And I think that's going to be a fascinating game. It's the Football Against Homophobia game, and I'm saddened that it's not therefore going to have people in the ground, because I think that sort of campaign obviously is massively more impactful if there's an audience. I know it's on BT Sport, but I mean, BT Sport are not going to be interested in covering that, I suspect, except perhaps to pay lip service to it. It's a shame as well, because I know that under the new ownership, they would embrace the idea, and it'd be great to have a big crowd and them there, and maybe for us to be able to make more of a gesture and an occasion of that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's obviously quite close to both our owners' hearts as well, isn't it? The inclusivity, especially with the LGBTQ plus community. And yeah, as you said, it's such a shame that we don't have fans in to celebrate the LGBTQ plus fans that we do have at the racecourse, and make them feel inclusive, and make everyone feel included, that if you come see Wrexham, that it's a nice, safe place to go.
Yeah, exactly. It is a real shame, but I've said this to you before. I sometimes I have to be careful how I put this. Sometimes I don't like campaigns, because campaigns can become something where you say something matters for a day and then you leave it. And I've been really pleased to see the Premier League players continuing to take a knee, for example, before matches to say, no, racism is not an issue that we can just pay lip service to and then walk away from. This is, it's ongoing, and you make a stand until you feel there's been genuine change. So, like I said, there's a bit of me feels skeptical about these sort of special days. But having said that, the intentions and the cause behind it are superb. And my skepticism is that I'd like to see more sustained gestures by clubs and by the game to make this point. Now, I'm pleased to say that the club I support have always had the community at heart under the trust, and are clearly going to be the same under our new owners. So I like the thought that perhaps as the fans inform the owners as to what they want, that a big part of it will be trying to make that sort of campaign, those sort of issues, a permanent part of the club, which I think is what the owners would want. Yeah,
and I think with homophobia as well, I think it's a cause that flies under the radar sometimes as well. Yeah. I think it's quite not acceptable, but to say the odd term or word that's deemed homophobic can seem sometimes people don't even bat an eyelid at it, do they? And I don't think it gets reported as frequently as other issues as well. So this is obviously, it ties into why there isn't any gay professional football, male professional footballers, isn't there?
And it makes me angry when people say, oh, if only a player would come out and then we would have our sort of, poster boy. I mean, I don't understand the logic of that. People should live their own lives and do what they want to do. They don't have to set themselves up as some sort of example. So on that basis, I don't agree. I think it comes to a pretty sad state of affairs when people can only stop being hateful because they happen to like somebody that they think they're prejudiced against. I think if that's your mentality, God help you. I would say that's the amount of black players in football now. How many teams have not got a black player has not ended racism. It's a false idea anyway, and it's what you're saying, that for it to act as a barrier, this entrenched homophobia, to act as a barrier for people not to be able to just express themselves and just say who they are, reflects exceptionally badly on the game. And
well, for example, Stuttgart did a special kit a few weeks back, and the BBC posted it. And this is one point I really want to make about this subject, is that it's not a political statement to support LGBTQ rights. It simply isn't. You can be a conservative and be LGBTQ. You can be racist and be LGBTQ. You can be anything you want to be in LGBTQ. It's not a political statement. And as I said, you made a good point there, saying that a lot of people say, it'd be good for a gay footballer to come out. They shouldn't really have to come out, should they? They should be like, oh, this is my boyfriend, I'm carrying on with my life. It's such a shame that the likes of Tom's like Hitzelsberger, who used to play for Stuttgart and Aston Villa, that felt like he had to come out after his football playing career, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose also backing up what I'm saying, that in rugby, Gareth Thomas came out. It hasn't led to a torrent of other players coming out, as far as I'm aware. I think it's a false idea that people football needs to change the atmosphere so that people just are comfortable with being who they are.
I'd like to bring up an athlete from sport that I cover quite closely. It's the best female fighter of all time, Amanda Nunes, the UFC fighter. And she's a double belt champion. She knocks people out for fun, but she's a lesbian. But her whole persona, her whole thing is not about being a lesbian. It's about being she is the baddest woman on the planet. Her being lesbian doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. It's just, she's an amazing athlete. It doesn't matter what her sexual orientation is. What people care about is her knocking other women out, which is it's not about. It's about how good she is as an athlete, not about her being gay, which I think the UFC have done tremendously well. I think football should be taking leaps out of that sort of thing.
And that's a really interesting example because, that you can argue, can't you, that this is a problem. It isn't a problem in football. It's a problem in men's football.
Yeah.
I'm aware of gay female footballers, a very high profile. It's not so. It is an agenda-based issue to a great extent, I think. And yet, you look at MMA and something like that, and I think that the automatic, natural assumption people will have is it is the ultimate macho sport, and if football is going to be like this, then surely like boxing and MMA will be, and yet there you are given a beautiful example of the opposite. Do you think it could be because no, actually, okay, I've just thought of an answer to my own question. I'll ask you it, but I've not thought about it. I mean, MMA, as you said before, it's quite a new sport in the UFC and things like in terms of how it's marketed. So I was going to say to you, does that make it like more progressive? Like in boxing, you may not have people coming up, but Nicola Adams has.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that the UFC isn't a progressive brand at all. Dana White's good friends with Donald Trump, but but they still promote Amanda Nunes as this fantastic athlete, and don't mention the fact that they do mention on the promos that she has a wife who also fights in the UFC. But no, I think it's a problem with society in general when you have people who are running the country who get away with saying homophobic things and nothing said about it, and these people can still be in power. What do you think the average football fan's going to be like a lot of the time?
Well, that's so true, and we've seen that in so many areas of prejudice over recent times as well. It's sad to say, but hopefully there'll be a backlash of common human decency soon. And I do want to emphasise as well, I'm not trying to say that the campaign on Saturday is bad in any sense. I really support it wholeheartedly. Oh. I have a reservation about whether some people will just make the effort for a day, but then, I've done that now. I've ticked that box. I've worn that badge.
Which a lot of football clubs do, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad that we won't be like that, It's like the rainbow
it'd be nice to it'd be nice to have like maybe a rainbow flag somewhere at the racecourse that's always there.
Yeah. Why don't we... I'm trying to remember if there is one on the stand at the moment. I'll have to double check. But like say rainbow laces, why is that an occasional thing? Why don't we just always wear rainbow laces? It goes to Bellevue, doesn't it? Bellevue having the rainbow coloured numbers on their backs. That was great. Well, that became national news because no one else was making a sustained gesture. Well, it's not much to ask. Maybe we'll be the first professional team to do it, right?
Yeah, or a rainbow away kit or goalkeeper kit or something along those lines.
Yeah. I'll be careful here, though, because the commercialization can get complex because, of course, and he's a subject quite close to my heart, Rayo Vallecano, of course, a proper left-wing community club in Madrid, well known for supporting their community, and an awful lot of what they do is genuinely sincere and driven by fans or by players or employees of the club, and yet their iconic away kit, because Rayo is Spanish for lightning, and so Rayo Vallecano's kit is white with the red sash across like Peru's, and it's a real iconic kit. And then for an away kit, one year, they had a rainbow stripe across, which got an awful lot of attention and positive media coverage across the world, but wasn't popular with Los Bucaneros, their ultras, because they feel like they're the guardians of the sort of purity of spirit of the club. And they were saying, this is a commercial thing. This is the owner knowing this will really play well. We're getting into the whole St. Pauli sort of commercialism against values issue.
I was just mention the St. Pauli have the flag on their cuff there, on the neck part of the kit, don't they?
Yeah. And it's ironic, isn't it, really? That St. Pauli also stand for similar things. I'd say there's a little bit more purity in the Rayo example because they generally aren't commercially exploited. I've been to their ground. Believe me, it's
St.
very
St.
National
Pauli,
League.
St. Pauli. I've been to St. Pauli's ground. It's very
Yeah.
exit through the gift shop,
Yeah.
sort of thing. But on the flip side, they are doing the calls, aren't they?
Yeah.
Consistently, and people are looking at it and thinking, "Oh, I'm a St. Pauli fan," and it's the rainbow, and it sort of makes it normal, doesn't it?
Yeah. I just realised that's what we'll end up being accused of. If the takeover achieves what it wants to achieve, we'll be playing in a higher division and being accused of like doing community stuff just to draw attention to ourselves for commercial purposes. It's a glimpse into the future.
But for the disability work that we do at the Wrexham has been done way before. You know, look, Kerry, a Premier League club would be happy to have someone like her on their ranks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think with Wrexham, it's not just a fad sort of thing. I think that is a part of the ethos of our club.
Absolutely
So
right.
I don't accept the fact that if other teams are saying we're doing it for publicity, because I don't think that's true.
Well, I would say to anyone listening, you know, before the match, during the match, support the Football Against Homophobia campaign.
Definitely.
It's massively laudable. Like I said, I'm critical of the way some people pay lip service to it, not to the campaign itself. And I know that Steve Lloyd, who was a brilliant guest for us a while ago and is behind the Dragon Chat, and who won an award, of course, this week, has also done excellent work for that campaign, the Football Against Homophobia, and take to social media, support it, back it up, and send a clear message from Wrexham fans that we're against all prejudice, and that is not a one-day thing. It's a lifestyle choice. No, it's not a lifestyle choice. That's wearing a fancy badge for longer than one day. It's just a core, basic value of us because we are decent human beings and we want to show it.
And it's important if you're on Twitter or if you're in the ground or anywhere and you see discrimination, it's important that you call someone out on it. And even 100%. If that's just reporting the message or telling a steward if you got, or literally calling them out on why they've said it. If you're brave enough, I think it's important that Wrexham, no matter what your background is, no matter what you believe in, you can come and watch a game, and when we score we all celebrate together, so it doesn't matter what you believe in or where you come from.
You want to make it clear that racist idiots, the prejudiced idiots, are not welcome, and that's the end of it. If you're that sort of person, go somewhere else. And
it's not a political statement, this anyway. It's not a political statement at all. That's the one thing we need to talk about. This isn't politics. This is a movement.
It's just decency. It's just treating other people with respect. That's all it is. It's not political. It's just basics, isn't it?
Exactly.
Well, speaking of respect, after this, we'll talk about a great man of the club who sadly died this week, Dai Davies.
I'm Reese Johnson, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Well, we were greeted by the sad news this week, of course, of the passing of Dai Davies. He was unwell for quite some time, but that doesn't soften the blow of losing a genuine man, a truly great player for Wrexham, and a genuinely interesting man. We got to know a real depth of his personality, which you rarely manage to achieve at a football club and with a football player. And the little personal stories are often the most important things about him. And Chay, even though, he'd have been in goal for us before you were born, you still are fully aware. In a way, this is linked to the idea of Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds buying the club, because a football club is not just what happens on the pitch this Saturday. It's awareness of a heritage and a history. And like I said, you weren't born when he was playing for Wrexham, but I
was very well aware of him.
Yeah, you're still aware of him. You still have that, in fact, sort of second-hand experience of him, don't you?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I used to, I don't really have the conventional, my dad took me to the games. It was actually my auntie. And my nan used to go to the games as well. So I used to say to my nan, in the 70s, when you used to go watch, because I was a goalkeeper growing up, I was like, when you used to go watch Wrexham, who's the goalkeeper? And she'd always say Dai Davies, and she's like, he was fan. She'd always talk about him being one of the best Wrexham's ever seen.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, so it's and looking at the reaction to his death, on Twitter, and these colossal clubs like Everton and Swansea and all these clubs there's a real outcry, and there's real sadness and real fond memories of him playing for their clubs.
He was, looking at it from a football point of view, he is seen as one of the key signings ever by Wrexham. The season before, we nearly get promoted to the second division and miss out on the last day of the season. And Arvon Griffiths then takes over as John Neal leaves as manager, and he makes a couple of key signings. Now, everybody agrees, it's just a cliche of Wrexham history, that the big thing was bringing in Dai Davies and Dixie McNeil. It's got to be pointed out that we actually had a Welsh international goalkeeper already in Brian Lloyd, who was an absolutely outstanding goalkeeper for us. But Davies was a real big signing, signed from Everton, Welsh international keeper, and an extremely strong personality, one of those people who had very high standards and would demand it of everyone else around him. And he definitely was somebody who, and I'm not talking about Lloyd for a moment, because he was superb servant of the club, but Davies was clearly somebody who was driving players on and causing a rise in quality in players around him. We did bring other key players in over that summer as well, who were maybe a bit neglected, but Davies and McNeil are always seen as the key ones. And I've got to say that he was a fine goalkeeper. In a way, as a goalkeeper, the best tribute I can pay him is what he did after he retired. He retires in 1984, so he stays for us for 4 seasons, promotion season, and then 3 seasons in the second division. The season after he leaves to go to Swansea, who, under John Toshak with Davies in goal, go up to the first division, we get relegated, which isn't, to be fair, a comment on the goalkeeper, because Eddie Niedzwiecki was the backup keeper, and he was brilliant as well. But, Davies's strength of character leaves. Other players leave too, to be fair. And there's holes in that squad. Davies, then, after he retired, he went to Tranmere and coached, then retired. He comes back a year later, out of retirement, because Bangor City have asked him to play for them. And that's the first thing maybe I should say as well. Dai Davies was a great representative of Welsh culture, and in that respect reflects the club exceptionally well. And then he plays some European games for Bangor, even though he's retired. A year after that, Wrexham have a massive goalkeeper crisis, and Dixie, Dai's big mate, is manager. So Dixie gets in touch and says, Dai, would you be willing to play for us, even though you've essentially been retired for 2 years? Dai says yes. Now, if you think about this in context, he's not getting any games. He's only playing Welsh Cup. He's not getting any games in between. I would assume that his training time is pretty limited. He has retired. I always remember, because I'd be at the back of the cop watching games then, I always remember he looks a lot more stiff-legged than he used to be, because, to be fair, he was older. And like I said, he retired. But we won the Welsh Cup. I think he played 8 games in total, and we won the Welsh Cup that season.
Wow.
Now, how do you do that? That's why I'm saying about how this, in a way, reflected most about him, because he's a strong organiser, so he can organise his defence. We saw the same with Andy Dibble in 2002, 2003. And he knows his craft. So he knows his limitations. He knows his positioning. He knows what he needs to do to get the right outcome, i.e. not a goal. And that knowledge and ability to control his defence, to communicate with his defence, to demand his defence do the job, and then to be able to work out, even though his capacities aren't as good as they used to be, what he should do and what he can still do, and to still be in the right spot to make the right decisions, that's a sign of a proper goalkeeper. It's not about agility, it's about up there. And Davies had it up there, and I think that's a real sign of him. Other things I would think about as well. I mean, I knew him vaguely, and a very nice man. I remember being in the hotel bar with him. That was a great night after Wrexham beat Grimsby at Wembley. And he was just thrilled that Wrexham had won at Wembley. I mean, he was, doesn't come from North Wales, but Wrexham through and through once he played for us. And after retiring, it seems Wrexham was his team. I remember running a poll on the Support Association website. This would be the 90s, I think, early internet. No, couldn't have been 2000s, I suppose. And he was voted best goalkeeper of all time for Wrexham. And the day I announced it was a Saturday. And he came looking for me in the press box. And I said, "Oh, Dai," I said, "well, congratulations." I said, "Shows how much we respect you." And he said, "It's rubbish though, isn't it?" And I said, "What's mean?" He said, "Oh, it's rubbish to vote me as best goalkeeper for Wrexham because all these other goalkeepers, nobody's seen them. They're just basing it on they've seen me play." And I just thought that was brilliantly summing up his personality. He's a real original thinker, if you like, and knew his own mind. And as far as he was concerned, well, it's got no value. It's got no value. And that, I only want things that are tangible that I've achieved, if you see what I mean. The wonderful example of that, the famous one, is when we get promoted. We get promoted in, one of the great days in Wrexham history. We need to beat Rotherham to go up. We beat them 7-1. The massive crowd, everyone's going crazy. The players are all doing a lap of honour, except Dai Davies. Dai Davies refuses to do a lap of honour and goes in the changing room instead. Now, people are all saying, "Oh, he's an awkward bloke. That's pathetic, that is. Why can't he enjoy himself?" His attitude is perfectly clear. We've won nothing. We can still win the title. We haven't won it yet. When we've won something, I'll celebrate. And the next game, which is a 0-0, wins the title, and then he celebrates. But I just like that.
That's a true professional, isn't it?
Sort of single-mindedness. I reject this. I'm thinking about this award. I reject it because the context isn't fair. I want to win, and I'm not going to relent until I've won. And I just think that's a great sort of example of the professional sportsman personality. And that's above most of the things. Although I did write a thing on the website yesterday about his stats. The first Wrexham goalie ever to concede less than a goal a game throughout his entire career. And although he is now 6th on that list, it's got to be pointed out that 5 of the goalkeepers ahead of him played in the National League, whereas Dai Davies played most of his games in what is now the Championship. That's a very different thing. Andy Dibble is the other exception. So, you can't compare in that sense. Was it his third, only one of 3 goalies who have kept clean sheets, over 50 clean sheets for us. Great keeper, great man, and a sad loss. But we're all, when you feel pain over loss, it's because you valued somebody, and we're all lucky to have had him.
And also, one thing you haven't mentioned much is the contribution to the Welsh national team he's had as well. And with only Wayne Hennessy and Neville Southall ahead of him in appearances, it says a hell of a lot, doesn't it, about what he contributed to Wales as well. I've seen a few people on Twitter saying he's probably one of Wales' best keepers behind Neville Southall as well.
No question. I've been watching since his era, and Southall and Davies, I think, the standout goalkeepers Wales have had in that last 40 years for me. It's sort of interesting when you look at the list of Welsh internationals. It shows you how football has changed. There's more internationals now. So, I don't want to sound nasty, but Dai Davies was the most capped goalkeeper in Welsh history and was very high up on the list. I think, did I say now? He was 4th, I think, in caps overall when he retired, and yet now he's like 26th. Because there's more meaningless internationals played.
Like playing America and things like that.
There's some decent but average players who are way above him now in terms of caps. That it's more a sign of the times than anything else.
Well, I don't mean to knock Wayne Hennessy. He's way ahead of him, and he's 3rd keeper for Crystal Palace.
Hennessy's done a great job for Wales.
And he's done a great job. He's got us to our first semi-final. I'm not knocking Hennessy at all, but.
I would point out, though, that sometimes football is sort of reported and remembered inaccurately. Davies played in the quarterfinals of European Championships in 1976. Nobody talks about Wales having done that because in those days, there essentially wasn't a final tournament. It was more of a knockout competition. And the only, it's a bit like the one that should have happened last summer. The only real sort of final tournaments is the semi-finals and final were played in one country over a short period of time. So, Wales got to the quarterfinals European Championships in the mid-70s with Davies in goal, but nobody talks about it. It's just like the Premier League is treated as the start of football internationally. 1980, the next one is the first Euro tournament. So people tend to ignore what happened beforehand. So it's interesting to delve back a bit and see how things change. But Dai Davies did play in the last 8 of a European Championship.
a legend, and even when people at my age even think of him as the best goalkeeper we've ever had, because you've heard stories and you've heard memories of him. You hear all these great stories about it. You talk to anyone who watched the team when he was playing, everyone always says he was the best keeper we've ever had. Yeah. Usually, don't they?
Absolutely.
Would you say he was the best keeper we ever had?
I maybe should quote Dai and say I've not seen every keeper, and therefore I can't answer the question. But I mean, certainly he was an exceptionally high quality goalkeeper. We've been lucky with keepers. I mean, Ben Foster played at the high level. Andy Marriott played at a high level. I always loved Mike Hooper, who was briefly with us and then went to Liverpool and was playing for the Liverpool team when it was starting to decline, but was still very good in the 80s, 90s.
Dibble.
Dibble was great. I mean, Dibble was so far over the hill and yet still superb. That's quite something, that is. But
even Chris Maxwell.
I have massive respect for Chris Maxwell. But Dai Davies was, like I said, it was his strength of personality and his character and the way he imposed that on the defence that was crucial. I think always so memorable that he'd have false teeth that he'd take out for the game. I used to love looking at all the gummy pictures of him screaming at his defence. That's great.
And it's a real see how good of a player he was when you've seen the likes of Everton really paying homage to him. One of the biggest clubs in British football. And you look through all the comments and all the little stories they have of him as well. It's such a sad loss, isn't it?
He was. It sounds silly, this, but he contributed more than just on the pitch. And I know everyone does really, but it was clear that he was, and that is something special because you can think back. There's been loads and loads of players that will mention their name, and all we can say is, "Oh, I think he played fullback for us." Dai Davies transcends that and then some.
Yeah.
So great sadness, but a great man.
Brilliant to learn as well about a real legend of the club.
I'm Fiacre Kelleher, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio Show.
Well, Chay, again, we've done a mammoth one here. Quite a lot for us to to put out. Another extended Dragonheart, but it's been an absolute pleasure. And I like you, I'm really looking forward to Notts County game.
Yeah, I'm really excited about hopefully a positive result, or even just a positive performance against the side that's flying as well as us at the moment. And such a crazy week with the passing of Dai Davies and the takeover. We've had a hell of a lot to talk about, so I hope everyone who's listened really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, thanks for joining me again, Chay. And in this of all weeks, we really do need to have Jay Harris a Hollywood send-off. And we're out. Oh, beautiful work. Thanks, Jay, as ever.
Really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? Oh, where on earth are...
This is Jay Harris, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio.
Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.